Welcome to Unstoppable AF. Unstoppable and funny. I'm Karen Hall, and I'm here with my co-host Barbie Ray. And are you ready for some more laughs? It's time. Every Monday, 9 a.m. Pacific. And our guest today is Rex Sikes, and we're so grateful to have Rex on.
Rex,
well, you say that now.
welcome to our show. Rex
Welcome.
is an international speaker. He has encouraged millions of people to live life on their own terms. It is a best-selling book, and he is fabulous. He is unstoppable and funny. Welcome to our show, Rex.
Well, as I said, you say that now. Let's see how it ends. I could be the death of this show. This could be the most unfunny show ever. It could be horribly serious, and everybody could go, "Oh my God, what was that about?" You never know.
Your girls want your attention, Rex.
They do. Like, what the heck are you doing? You're talking to these people that don't exist for me. What do you want, Haley? What do you want? Come here. Come here. I know what she wants, but I'd have to get up. She wants
a treat. Well, go get her one. Go get her one if you need to.
Okay, I'll be right back.
It's real.
Unstoppable. Yes. Anything can happen at any time.
That's right. We were just laughing about our tech issues. Like, oh my goodness, my battery's dying. This button didn't work.
I think it was Matt Kissane where literally my battery died, and I'm plugging. You watched me plug my thing back in. But I only had it unplugged because my ridiculous laptop keeps shutting down when I have the technology people.
It's always entertaining. Oh my goodness, especially at showtime.
Did anyone just have a CJ Grace bra moment backflash? Because I did.
Rex might not know what we're referring to.
We had CJ Grace on, and she throws her bras, and one of them stuck on something on her ceiling, and it was just hanging behind her for the rest of the show.
I would do that too, but I can't get my bra off. I can't reach around and unhook, so I don't know. Yeah. I should have got a front hooking one, and I'd be okay. I wasn't prepared for man boobs growing up.
Oh my goodness. Well, Rex, I was just amazed about you falling out of an airplane. Oh my word.
Well, I didn't fall out.
I
fell asleep and went out the door. I jumped out of a plane. I was skydiving, so I didn't even jump. They had you crawl out onto the wheel, hold on to the strut, to the wing strut, and then you let go. And gravity does the rest. You don't have to jump. If you jump, you might actually jump into the tail of the plane, so you just drop. So I wasn't like some idiot who falls out of a plane. I was a bigger idiot who jumped, who let go of a plane.
Who chose to go out.
I have to
smile in the sky and you go, okay, let go. And you go, oh yeah, sure. All right. Yeah.
And I would be easier jumping without thinking than letting go. I can tell you right now, they'd be landing the plane and my little broken hands would still be holding on.
Well, here's the funny part about it. It was the first time I went skydiving, and it ended up in a disaster. I have done it since, but I mean, it ended up as a problem. I had a girlfriend at the time who didn't want me skydiving because I was going with another woman who was a stunt person in a film that I was doing. So she was mad to begin with, and then also thought I was stupid for, risking my life. So when I got injured, I tried to hide it from her, and that created more problems.
What's going on? Nothing. Don't look at my arm.
Yeah, well, exactly. So, but the interesting thing is that they have what they call a crash course that they do, which is not really the best thing to call anything that involves jumping out of a plane.
It's not a good marketing plan. They should change the branding.
They may have changed. They may have since then changed it. I mean, this is like in the late 70s, early 80s, and So there was, I think it was like a 6-hour crash course where anything and everything that could go wrong is what they walked you through.
Oh wow,
And
it's my life.
and so one of them was called the Mae West. Mae West is when in those days, it was the circular parachute, which meant that you land hard. It's not these ones that you float down and you step out of, the rectangular chutes. This meant that you actually, it was like the World War II parachutes kind of thing.
Yeah.
And a Mae West meant that one of the cables got over the parachute and made it look like breasts instead of one big umbrella.
That sounds horrible.
Well, and it could be because it would mean that the rate at which you're plummeting is different because, but they go through all these different things of what you could go wrong, and you're jumping off of something that's about 5 feet high, and they go, that's about how it will feel when you land and all this kind of stuff. And the very last one before they have you go up is called Student in Tow. And you're like, what's that? They go, well, you may have gotten knocked out, and hit the back of the plane, and your parachute gets caught in the tail, and now you're being dragged behind the plane in the air. So if you're conscious, is how they put it, put your hands like this, and we'll cut the parachute loose, which means they'd have to crawl out to the back of the plane and try and cut it loose. And then, if you can't land, you should just get knocked on the ground. But so they'd cut you loose, and then you eject that parachute and pull your ripcord on the other chute. Well, fortunately, nobody had that happen that day. So that was...
I'm impressed with the fact you actually got on the plane after the crash course.
Yeah, and
through your mind that you get on that plane.
I don't know if they do it to intimidate, to scare, or just because, it's kind of like, we have to go through these things. And so here's all the things that could go wrong so that you could be prepared in case they do go wrong. What happened to me, though, was I was such a good parachuter. I was so good. I was the only one to hit inside the target. They have a bullseye painted on the ground. But that was also the problem, because as you're coming down, I'm doing this thing and you're pulling your stuff to try and, get over. I'm trying to get onto the bullseye. I didn't. I got in the outer ring of the target. So, but at the point at which you've got about a second before you hit the ground, you're level with the horizon. So you're above the horizon, coming down, and you're supposed to be watching it. And then when you're level with the horizon, prepare to land. Well, I was like this. And went, and hit. It was like I hit without being prepared to land, and I hurt my back.
Yeah.
So I wasn't injured. I was injured, but I wasn't like ambulance or anything. But I really badly hurt my back. So I couldn't sleep. I couldn't move. I couldn't, that kind of thing. So I went to the doctor and I said, I can't sleep. I can't concentrate. I need something. And he goes, here, take these. And I said, can I take them right now, leaving your office? And he said, yeah. And he said, that was the last thing I remembered for months. It was a fatal combination of pills that should have killed me. It didn't. I'm a walking medical miracle. It didn't kill me. And I didn't go into a coma, reversible or otherwise. I managed to live and function on those pills, not having a clue what I was doing. I went to pick up my sister, who's working at the time, like Tiger Beat and Teen Magazine and Hollywood. She said, you were a completely different person. I was terrified. I had no idea who you were driving the car. So the good news is that during the entire time that this was going on, I didn't kill anybody. I didn't hurt anybody, but other than myself. But, somehow I got through it without damaging anybody except for myself.
Well, how did you ever get out of it? Because if you didn't even know that something was different.
I had no clue what was going on. And I would do crazy things. I would show up at places. I nearly drove my car off a cliff. Everything. And I didn't know what was happening. So I started to drink, and then people started giving me drugs. And people say, hey, here, have a Quaalude, calm down. Here, have some Valium. Here's some, here's Darvon, Percocets, take the. So I became this kind of walking pharmacy. And then a friend of mine one day said to me, you're going to die. You're passing out all over the place. You're driving your car nearly off cliffs. You're doing all these things, you're going to die. And I thought, well, I don't want to die. And that happened the day after, actually the night of It was a very popular club in Los Angeles at the time on the Sunset Strip that I was friends with the owners and everybody, and it was a celebrity hangout in a private club upstairs. And I went up apparently one night, and this guy accosted me and said, and he's like, I'm going to kill you. And I'm like, I don't know who the heck you are. You were in here last night. You were pushing me around, and my girlfriend and this. I'm like, I don't know who you are. And he says, calls over the maitre d' and goes, look, Rex is a good guy. You're a good guy. Can we just shake hands? And so we do. Begrudgingly, he shakes my hand and everything. And I go downstairs to a friend of mine, a waiter downstairs. I said, Johnny, who is Nikki? He goes, Nikki. I said, up in the club, Nick. And his face just kind of turns like white. He's like, why? I go, well, because he said I'm pushing him around. He's like, you're going to die. You're going to die. And I'm like, what are you talking about? He goes, he's like this mafia guy. He will kill you. He will.
Literally.
And then he read me down. He said, you did this, you did that, you do this, you're going to die. And it was the first moment during all of that time that I thought, I don't want to die. So I didn't know what to do. And, my parents were traveling, and my sister said, you got to come home. Something's going on with my brother. And so when they found me nearly comatose, surrounded by pill bottles and by alcohol bottles and journals. I had journals, all these crazy journals. I've been writing everything down, and it was all scribbles. You couldn't read a single one. It was, like college journal, notebook after notebook after notebook. That was just gibberish.
Like when you're falling asleep and studying all night long. Yeah, I remember those journals.
Yeah, no, exactly right. And so the long story short is they removed everything. I went cold turkey off of everything.
Cold turkey.
Yeah. I did too. Year and a half. I did too.
What?
I was on heavy drugs for a year and a half, and I went cold turkey too.
Yeah. Well, then, and if what happened for you happened to me, I then felt so horrible that everything I had done, I started to drink and take my own drugs to make up for feeling bad and to try and mask that. And that's at some point when I realized, this isn't working. I need to lock myself in my own apartment and not go anywhere. And that's what I write about in my book, and how I got my life back and what happened during the time that I'd locked myself in this room. But that's just a small piece of what's in the book. The book is a manual, a blueprint for how you transform your life. But it was a discovery that I made at that moment, being locked in a room. About 3 weeks into it, I went, oh, this is fascinating. And it changed my life.
Well, let me just tell everybody out there, an unstoppable world, don't go cold turkey. Work it out with your doctor and do what they say and taper down.
Well, there are legitimate reasons to do that. And you should announce that there are certain medications that if you go off too fast, and sometimes too fast means under a year. I mean, you say, oh yeah, you can do that in a week or 10 days, or you can do that in 3 months. Sometimes it means a year or more that you have to wean off of these medications because they can trigger seizures or other things that you would never have an issue with.
Right. So make sure you work this out with your doctor. I didn't. Rex didn't. We're lucky we're still here. But please work this out with your doctor. Now,
well, and truth be told, I am here, but that may not be the best advertisement for going cold turkey.
Oh my goodness.
I spent the time on the floor. I sat on my cold floor bathroom because it was a year and a half. And so I spent the time on my bathroom, and I probably hallucinated a lot. I talked to those pill bottles. I told them they had no power over me. And then I shook and I did the whole 9 yards of illness. But
well, I mean, a year and a half, that's a huge habit. You've developed habits and patterns in that year of doing something and being conditioned by the medications or the illicit or legal medications.
And I shouldn't even be here because that was I was paralyzed. And so there were days that I was frozen from the chin down, days my hands worked, my legs didn't work. I mean, I never knew from morning to morning what was going to work or if nothing. And so, but the pain was so bad that I was supposed to take all these things every 6 hours. Well, I was taking them every 20 minutes because in my head, I was high as a kite and the pain was so severe. I thought, 6 hours must have gone by. So, I overdosed, I don't know, hundreds of times. And I mean, it's blessed that I'm still here.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, no, it is a blessing, and you're fortunate, and not everybody comes out of it, and so,
And
you know,
Rex, I have your book too.
cool. Take a screenshot, quick.
Quick, take a screenshot. Someone do it. I can't do it while I'm holding the book.
And the book disappeared while you're holding it.
Where is it? Oh,
There it is. There it is. There we go. Try another one. Try another one. There's it. Okay. Cool.
And Rex, so tell us about your book. Tell us about, because that you were writing it during those 3 weeks.
No.
Oh,
I wrote it 30 years later. But,
Oh, I thought you started it during that time.
no, I didn't start it. What happened was I was in the throes of woe is me. Why did this happen to me? How could I be so stupid? What was, and after about 3 weeks, I'd go, how long is this going to take? When is going to, and I realized I didn't care how long it was going to take. That wasn't what I was interested in. The questions I were asking weren't getting me anywhere. I wanted to know how quickly I could recover, how soon I could get out, how confidently I could approach the world, how I might win my friends and people. I destroyed my career. I lost almost all of my friends. I mean, I was alone for a long, almost 2 years kind of thing. And so during that time, I realized, focusing on what went wrong wasn't going to solve it. Focusing on how to get better was what was going to do it. So I meditated, I did affirmations. I realized that even affirmations, while powerful, weren't as powerful as what I had then discovered, which then created this movement called directed questions, which now everybody uses through a variety of different names, but it is what it is. But the thing is that, questions open the door. It's like sounds. I mean, think about this. There are certain sounds that open your mind and others that close your mind. If I said, hey, Karen, Barbie, you want to go to dinner? It's going to be great. You're going to love it. Right. Let's go have some food. You don't really feel like doing it, do you?
Not that
say, oh, wow. Hey.
Dessert, take me out for a hot fudge sundae. Now you got me.
Exactly. But if I went, oh man, dinner. Oh, I've got the best place. Wow, you're gonna love it. I mean, you tend to open up with it. So there are sounds that open your neurology and sounds that close your neurology down. So just how you say things to people, whether it's an invitation or a stop, like the universal, this is a stop sign. If you go, hey, people kind of know, hey, stop. Well, you can do that with your voice too, and you do it in your head a lot. Somebody says, you want to do this, and the first sound that goes off in your head is like, whoa, danger, Will Robinson. You're not going to want to do it.
That's so interesting, Rex. It's so true. Even in our own head, the sound.
Okay, yeah. Well, I mean, what better place to screw yourself up than in your own head, So the point being is that I realized that the questions I were asking were taking me down a rabbit hole of despair, and that I could ask other questions that would open me up to possibilities and resources and opportunities that I'd never explored. And so that's how I started to do workshops after coming out of my my den, essentially, out of this chair, was to say, hey, you can change far easier, because. And at the time, I wrote an article, Why Affirmations Do Not Work. And then people got really mad, like, well, affirmations do work. They do work. I mean, they do work. But it was a hook to grab people to go, hey, check this out.
It worked. They came screaming.
To get somebody to read something, sometimes you have to offend them. And I can be really offensive. And I do that a lot of times on purpose. Because it's like I want you to think about what you're thinking or saying. It sounds like I'm arguing with you about what we're talking about. I'm not. I'm just being provocative. I'm like trying to get the bottom of the soup up onto the top by stirring the pot. So if I can stir up your thinking and you go, oh, now that I thought about it, I agree with myself, I'm going to keep it. Or now that I thought about it, I realize I was wrong and I need to make a change. So either possibility is okay. I'm not trying to determine which way you go at the end, unless it serves you to be a better human being or serves the world that you're a better human being as a result of that. But I'm all for making you feel a little bit uncomfortable in order to get to the place of comfort and well-being. Because most people will never, if you're sitting on a couch watching TV eating bonbons, unless it gets uncomfortable, unless you go, oh, I'm really hungry, I need more bonbons, or I really have to go take a poop right now, or whatever, you don't leave. Our comfort zone is called a comfort zone because we're comfortable within it. And
Right.
unless we get uncomfortable somewhat, we're not going to change. So most people, sadly, they wait until it gets really, 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 really bad. I mean, that's what I did. They wait until it gets really, really, really bad, and then they try and get out of it. And that's a little bit harder than if you can recognize the signs of going down the rabbit hole and going, I'm not going to go there.
Rex,
That's why I always encourage people, you don't really have to hit rock bottom. All you have to do is recognize I'm in the wrong direction.
Well, and there's a couple of things. So, for example, in alcohol, it's pretty hard to drink yourself to death. People manage. There is alcohol poisoning. They overdrink and they can die. But for the most part, they can drink and drink and drink and drink and drink for years and have a horrible, horrible life living in the gutter and everything else, but they're still alive. Somebody takes fentanyl, they can be gone in seconds, so right. There are things that can do you in, quite quickly if you're not paying attention. So, and the same thing with negative thinking. You can exist for decades being a pessimist, an ogre, a mean asshole. I don't know if I can swear on your show.
Well, they haven't shut us off, so we're okay.
Well, let's try. I can try. I can go on a tirade. I can just. But at any rate, no, but seriously, in all seriousness, to be able to love yourself and be kind and gentle yourself, to recognize when you're going in the wrong direction, be able to change it. Most people do that. I call it dog shit and diamonds. You have to choose. And most people choose dog shit. Obviously, it's because that's.
Rex, I teach that too. That negative thinking only leads to more negativity.
Oh, right.
And yeah, I teach that all the time because people do have a tendency to gravitate to that. And it is a spiral. Yeah.
And it's the path of least resistance. And that's why
it is. And because people will be there. That's that comfort zone. Here's the sad part. People are comfortable being uncomfortable. And so they don't change. They're willing to tolerate a lot of misery before they do anything about it.
Exactly.
What?
I was going to say, Rexy, I want to hear about your direct questions.
Well, yeah, okay. So but they're willing to tolerate an awful lot. So the first piece to change is becoming aware that you need to change, noticing that something is out of whack and you want to change it. So I wanted to create a conspiracy of laughter, for example, because laughter is contagious. We were talking before. It's a non-voluntary response to things. If somebody laughs, I'm in the film business and actors, and you see these outtakes, the blooper reels, and somebody says,
favorite.
Ready, action, and you go, and then I went to this, and
my favorite part of every
cut, do it again. They go, okay.
I know.
And then and they look at the other actor, and the other actor's laughing. And what happens is they get anchored to each other's face and to the laughter and to the experience and the feeling. And then it takes, 25 takes later, they're finally going, all right, I can get through this.
Exactly.
But because it's so powerful, laughter, and Norman Cousins discovered it, and Bernie Siegel and other people, laughter is so transformative because it changes the way you're breathing, and breath work is one of the, it's our connection to being alive is our breathing, and so it changes how you breathe. It oxygenates everything, so it makes you, and to some extent you hyperventilate when you laugh if you've got a good belly laugh, and you can't. And this is all very wonderful, but what people don't understand is that people have problems, and they consider their problems habitually the same way. They look at them from the same mental point of view. It's a problem. Nobody knows the trouble I've seen. Nobody has it as bad as me. The worst thing ever in the world. This is my, that kind of. They go through this whole BS, complaining, blaming, whining, kind of stuff. And then at some point, if they're smart, if they're aware, if they're wise, they go, I'm maintaining the problem. I don't have to do that anymore. I need to do something different. Now, some people will then look back on those days. Like I look back on the days of where I was, having to lock myself in a room and going, my whole life changed as a result of that. It changed as a result of everything. I mean, you can keep tracking it all the way back. From the skydiving, sure, and the accident, and the drugs, and the whole thing. But before that was the girlfriend. Before that was, how I met the girlfriend. Before that was how I got to where I met the girlfriend. I mean, you can go however you want. But I go back and I go, that was actually a turning point in my life. Right. And that's why Steve Jobs said you cannot connect the dots looking forward, but you can always connect the dots looking back. And so if you can look back at that and go, that was the beginning of a transfer, or as some people do, they look back on situations and they laugh. They go, I can't believe I was such an idiot. I was so stupid. It was so silly of me to do that. Well, if you could look back and laugh, or you could look back and go, that is the best time in my life. It was when everything's, why should you wait? Why just not do it right now? Why not take whatever you're looking at this moment and go, you know what, this could be the doorway to a whole new experience. This could be my very salvation, my solution. But what for most people is the problem is their solution. They think, I know what will fix this. And they spend all their time trying to fix that. And that is the very thing that they might need to throw out in order to let the other things, the other infinite opportunities and possibilities and resources be available to them. So directed questions, and there was an article in 2015, I think it was, some woman wrote it. I don't know if she's alive or dead. I've never been able to contact her. So Sikes developed this thing in the early 80s. It didn't get the kind of attention it deserved. And then somebody reinvented it in 1999. Not only did they reinvent it in 1999, they used all my examples and all my stories verbatim in sequence.
Oh,
they have since changed that. They have that, but if you could do the Wayback Machine, go back and look at their YouTube channel, you see that they described their product the same way I described all of what I was talking about.
Oh,
yeah. And since then, it's been done a dozen or more times. It's in a bunch of different people's books under different crediting and everything else, and that's okay. What it tells me is.
It was good.
This is good. Some people need millions and millions of dollars with it, in different ways, and again, it just tells me that it's powerful and it's effective. But here's the thing. Even the ones who've made millions and millions of dollars have missed the very heart of it, because it's not about getting an answer, which is what questions, if I say, where'd you get your shirt? You could say, well, it was a gift. You could say, I don't know. I don't remember. You could say, I got it at Penny's, or, it's a thrift store. It was a hand-me-down, anything. If I say, what's the capital, Arizona? You go, oh, or California, it ends. It doesn't have to go any further. If I go, how much fun are you going to have today?
Lots.
You can say none, or you can say a lot, but the true answer is you have no clue.
Oh, now
you have to make it happen, baby. You make it happen.
Here's the thing: if you pose a question to your brain, legitimately asking your brain, how good can I feel? How much fun can I have? What kind of delight can I experience? How much love can I find? Your brain will look even after you give up on it, because there's this thing called the tip of the tongue phenomenon that people sometimes remember and sometimes forget. And that's that, like, you got to see this movie. It was, oh geez, what was the name of it? Oh God, and the more you try and get it back, the more elusive it is, right? So you go, well, forget about it. It'll come to you, and you wait. And
at 3 a.m., I'll be texting you, boo.
Exactly. Well, it could be minutes later, it could be hours later, it could be weeks later, but you go, oh my God, it was this. It drops in. And what that means is that the brain is continuing to work on it after the human quit.
It's searching its Rolodex.
And that's how the brain works. And so it's not about getting an answer. It's about having behavioral change. And everybody who's repurposed it goes for the answer. Like, why am I so lucky? Or why is this happening? Or how is this? Or what if I did this? It's the heart of directing questions, which nobody seems to have gotten from my work, unless they've trained with me, is to use it to create behavioral change and to be the instigator of behavioral change. If you affirm things and assert things, you can say, I am my ideal weight. And part of you can go, no, you're not. You're a fat slob, or you're a skinny twerp, or, whatever. And so when I wrote the original article on why affirmations don't work, those were kind of the examples. I am my best self, and your brain goes, no, you're not. But you can be. And the key is to affirmations are great. They're powerful, but you have to do them, and you have to do them consistently. And there are ways to make them work. And most people just think, well, if I, the Emile Coué thing, every day and every way I'm getting better and better, but that's not how you make affirmations work. Better than nothing.
Right.
It's not-
Exactly.
the most powerful way to make them work is to be very energetic and enthusiastic with them and chant them and, and to ask them, and to, so it's funny though, in my workshops, when I was in the early 80s and since, I started to tell people, write down 25 things that you feel grateful for. And you'd watch these people like tonight, before you go to bed, the first day of the seminar, and people go, 25 things. I go, yeah, go take a list of 25 things. They go, you're kidding, right? I go, no, just write down 25 things. You should figure it out. And the next day they come back and go, I got 3. Somebody got 15. Maybe somebody got 25. And they go, do we have to? I go, just do it. And so after 3 or 4 days, they go, can we do more? Can we do more? And I go, yeah, I'm not telling you to stop. I just said do 25 because it was a reasonable number to get them to stretch, huh?
Yep. I teach the same thing you do. I call it the golden notebook. And I make people write down what they're grateful for and also their best memories and start connecting all of those things.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Because too many people spend too much time in misery, suffering, and problems and living a ho-hum life. They have one foot on the dock and one foot on the boat, and they don't go anywhere. They just bounce back and forth. If you really want to get somewhere, you have to get both feet in the boat, and go to your destination, or you have to get both feet on the dock and walk to where you want to go.
Or you have to swim after the boat that you've fallen out of so you can get back to the dock.
like falling out of an airplane. I had a guy, just so you know, this student of mine approached me a year ago in April and said, I'll never forget back in 1996 when we did this class and you had a Native American who came in. This gentleman was an impressive man. He was a giant, and he had been in Vietnam, and his plane had been shot down, and everybody died but him. And so he had a phobia of flying and wouldn't get in a plane. So during the course of the program, this came up, and I said, well, would you like to fix that? And he said, well, I don't know. So let's do that. So I did a process with him and said, okay, you're fixed. And he says, okay, cool. I said, but now we have to test it. So I rented a plane. We got him in this plane and flew him. And he came down and landed and was like, oh, this is fantastic. He'd overcome his fear. This was, 96, and Vietnam War was ended in 72 kind of thing. So it'd been a long time that he'd not been able to fly, and now he'd been able to fly. Well, when I rented the plane, I didn't know it, but this plane was like held together with rubber bands and chicken wire. It was like, I was terrified sitting in the back seat. He was up as a pilot. I was in the back seat with my wife at the time, and looking down through the wall at the ground, a mile below us, because it was just wired together. I'm like, well, the seat's going to fall out of this plane. Anyway, nothing happened. We came down. Everybody celebrated. It was this big. And in my book, I write about an agoraphobic who'd locked herself in her house for 11 years and wouldn't come out, and how we got her through that. And it's amazing because, people think, oh, it's got to take all this massive stuff. And it didn't. I'll let people read the book to find out what I did. But there's a lot of stories in the book like that are true stories and human stories of how you can change and how you can become the kind of person you want. That's what it's called, life on your terms. Create the life that you want.
Yeah. I love that.
That is so awesome.
So serious now. We need to create a movement to eradicate seriousness.
Yes, we do.
Look, I was born on March 20th, the first day of spring, and my blood type is B positive. I swear to God.
I like that. Oh, is mine. Not really.
I know. When you asked how much fun am I going to have, and you can't guarantee it, I can always guarantee it with Barbie. I can always guarantee. That's why we started Unstoppable AF, because I said we cannot keep all this laughter to ourselves. We have to share it with the world, Barbie. And I call her Lucy after Lucille Ball, because
Lucy.
She is just that funny.
I wasn't sure if you said Lucy or Lucy.
Either one works. It depends on the day.
She's really loose with the laughter.
Yeah. No.
Well, Lucille Ball was not really my neighbor. I lived up. I didn't live. I lived vicariously in my friend's home, about 8 houses away from Lucille Ball, and when I was a teenager.
Oh, wow. Wow.
It was Lucille Ball, Jack Benny on one side, and then it became Jack Benny, and then Jimmy Stewart was on the other side, tore down a house, make the whole house yard a kennel for his dogs. And but I lived with not didn't live. I didn't stay. I was there all the time, so I might as well have been with Rosemary Clooney and Jose Ferrer had divorced by that time, but it was the Ferrer kids, Gabriel Ferrer's. The kids are still my friends, but Miguel Ferrer passed away in like 10 years ago. George Clooney, lived there in the 80s and came, so.
Wow, what a neighborhood to go walking in.
It was a neighborhood to go walking in, and it still is, although most of Hollywood is tearing all of these kind of wonderful old homes down, to make room for progress.
Yeah, for progress. Well, on that note, we are coming to the end of our show. It has been so fun.
It has been fun. I hope that out of this that people do watch, and if they don't laugh and don't cry and don't do something different, then their life will be the same. And so there's an opportunity, there's an invite in every laugh to be different, because that is what your body is doing for you. It's saying, hey, time for a change. It's changing. You can't the sad part about people is you take them to a comedy show, and for an hour they forget their problems, and then they do everything they can to get their problems back.
That is so true. And that's one of the reasons why we have Unstoppable AF, because we want to help you forget your problems, and because laughter helps you be more resilient. And just like Rex said, it lowers the cortisol. It has so many neuroscience benefits, and it changes your thinking. And so thanks for being with us today on Unstoppable.
If you really are struggling with it, reach out to one of us and we will help you through your problems, and just keep watching our episodes. And if we're really wrapping up, then let me wrap up with Frank King, the great words of Frank King. If you enjoyed this program, please like, comment, share, and tell all of your friends. And if you did not enjoy this show, we really hope you have no friends. So until next week.
And if you didn't enjoy your show, you probably do not have friends, because you're imagining.
That's right. See you next week, 9 a.m. Pacific, each Monday for more laughs. See you then.
Bye.